but is there like a list of like personal characteristics that like stand out for like, okay, this is talent. You know what I mean? Like this is someone that I can represent and can get a lot of gigs and have a lot of
Yeah,
movement.
I think, and this might sound a bit, not even superficial, but a bit like fourth dimension kind of thing. But one thing that I actually do feel is that when I'm in the room with them, when we invite them for a meeting, it's literally sometimes aura. You can tell when somebody walks in the room and has some sort of energy about them, you know, that there's something in the air that shifts.
Hey guys, it's James from Grade. What does it take to manage world-class talent all across the globe? Today, Giacomo dives deep into how we went from a small town in Italy to managing talent all across the world, planning events and representing talent in countries with entirely different cultures and perspectives on life. This industry is super wide and there's so much to learn. Giacomo gave us a great deep dive into how the day-to-day actually looks behind the scenes. This was a fantastic conversation. Let's jump into it. Giacomo, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think the conversation, I've told you already, but I think it's going to be a very unique perspective on kind of how talent managers work in this kind of other side that, like, you know, everyone sees it on TV, everyone sees it at concerts and everything, but no one really realizes the work that kind of goes into it behind the scenes.
Mhm.
I would love to kind of like, I guess, start with like a retrospective and kind of see like, how did you get here? Like, how did your professional career start here? What's your background? What was all that like?
Yeah, so I moved to the UK from Italy as soon as I finished high school. I went to university in a small seaside town called Falmouth in Cornwall, where I studied music theatre and entertainment management. I did my bachelor's degree in 3 years, and throughout that time, I was already kind of using the spaces and the possibility to rent out equipment for free from the facilities at the university, which in hindsight was such a blessing because you could literally rent any sort of musical equipment, tech, gear, lighting, sound, anything you wanted. And for an 18 to 19, 20-year-old, that was literally perfect because you can actually start grafting and putting on events independently without really needing external support, or at least financial support, which was kind of like the main thing about it. So I think that kind of put me in the world of small scale events. I started putting on my own hip hop events, then it started getting into electronic music as well. And I think that was the first approach where you actually get to see firsthand what goes on in the background. What do you need to do in order to put on a good event? How do you reach the people? How do you reach an audience? What makes your event unique? Who do you want to participate in your event? Who do you want to have to perform? All of these little factors that, you know, slowly but surely started getting a bit bigger and bigger and bigger. Towards the end of my experience in Cornwall, obviously COVID happened. I stayed down there for an additional 2 years. So I actually lived in Cornwall for 5 years in total, where the live events sector kind of, went dormant for a while. In the meantime, though, I had been accepted for a master's degree in London with Westminster University. The master's was music business management. So I really wanted to channel and focus initially in music, live events, but also, again, the kind of human relationship between the talent, the manager, and the promoter. And it was just being part of that ecosystem, which to me was fascinating. After COVID, I go up to London, where I also bring with me my events company, Warmer People, which is still active nowadays in London mainly. And I did my master's degree, came out quite successfully, and then I started applying for jobs. I was in a situation where it was either find a job in London, ideally within the industry that I liked and still do, or go back to Italy or go back to Cornwall and whatnot. It was a bit of an uncertain time. Thankfully, I found and applied for a position which was as an assistant agent for a talent management company called Kruger Cowan, based in Chelsea. And then, yeah, I landed the job as an assistant agent. That was my role for the first year and a half. Then I became an agent, and till this day, I'm an agent for the company. And, work closely with different sort of talent from various backgrounds. And if we need to get into a bit more detail, I specialize mainly in the public speaking sector. So all of the talent that I work with come from various sectors in the entertainment industry, or they're also book authors, TV, film, music. But the common denominator, as I always say, is the public speaking.
That's amazing. What was it like starting your own agency and kind of doing that on your own, like with warmer people, and then
Yeah.
moving into more of like corporate kind of style where you're now an agent underneath like kind of like an umbrella of other people.
Yeah.
Like was that a big change for you or
Um, yes and no. Um, and I'd say both for several reasons. Yes, big change because obviously it's also about scaling, you know. Still now the events that I do with warmer people are very much in relation to kind of like the underground sphere of music events. Techno, house, stuff that's quite still a bit gritty. So working closely with venues such as Fabric in London, Village Underground, or certain other clubs abroad like Oxy in Berlin, or festivals like Door. But it's very music and DJ based. So it's very channeled in one direction, and that is kind of like the music and mainly electronic music when it comes to it. When I say no, on the other hand, there are quite a lot of similarities because the approach in terms of the work behind the scenes when it comes to uh, getting a talent in the right place at the right time. So the logistic aspect is, let's say, with the warmer people was a good training ground to then apply to the talent management agency, where obviously it's scaled up quite a bit. You're talking bigger budgets. You're talking more international travel. You're talking talent of a certain, realm within the entertainment industry. So let's say it was a good training ground, but now obviously it's a bit more big league kind of thing.
when you're like looking back, were there any like very notable moments, either like high or low, that you kind of like stand out in your mind as like defining either you as, I want to become this person that represents other people, and
Hmm.
tries to help them like connect to a larger audience, or maybe specifically in the career path that you have?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I've always considered myself quite a, I don't know, as the English say, I like to have fingers in different pies. You know, I like to have a bit of things going on and going in everywhere. So, let's say the main passion and focus has always been live events, music mainly as well, but also being in the room with fascinating talent, people that you wouldn't normally interact with every day. So I think the highs are actually when you are in those stimulating environments where you have some really exciting minds around you, and the topics of conversation are things that you wouldn't necessarily, have at the dinner table. And it really enables you to start thinking outside of the box a little bit and what goes on outside of, your own bubble, what's happening. I was in an event in India in October for the NDTV World Summit, and there were some fascinating minds there. I was there with a very special talent of mine called Merit Moore. She's a quantum physicist and also a ballerina, and she became notoriously famous because during COVID she started dancing with robots. You know,
Wow.
when nobody could interact, no human could interact with other humans, she just said, "Well, I want to dance, so let me program this robot to dance with me."
Where does like the talent sourcing come from? Like how does someone like Merritt be found? Like was
Yeah,
it
so
through online or something?
to contextualize, the time management agency that I work for has been live for 25 years. So it's a family run agency, and it's been going on for quite a while. So a lot of those connections are done simply by the fact that the founders were already in an environment where they knew quite a lot of people, and the scaling of that became obviously a focus point for additional networking. And Merit actually came on TV on the BBC for a show she did a while back about training to become astronauts. And that's just one example of how we actually get to, spot a talent. We see them maybe on TV, they're getting a bit of interest, like, wait a minute, this looks interesting. And maybe we also like find them interesting and stimulating and inspiring. And we think this is a person that we want to work with and we want to help elevate, that we want to find them new opportunities and follow them grow. So the way we find talent is completely varied. It can be because we see them on TV. It can be because we meet them at an event. It can be because we personally know them, and sometimes we're also referred by other talent that we represent and say, this is an agency that would actually, take care of you.
I remember like as a kid, so I'm Canadian originally from like Toronto area. Um, and I remember like when I was growing up, the big news was like Justin Bieber was found on YouTube, right? Like he was just a kid just playing the guitar on like the steps of
Yeah,
Stanford, like a small town, and all of a sudden like ushers reaching out to him and everything. So it's kind of amazing that that is still kind of how people are found, right? It's like
yeah,
they get out somehow through TV or YouTube or something, and like there's just people with the right eye, just being able to pick out and be like,
for
you know what,
sure.
that's something.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, credit to the talent as well, because you have to know and have the persistence to put yourself in the situation where there might be somebody that's able to spot you. You can be the most
Yeah.
talented individual in the world, but if you're just going to spend time in your room and not putting yourself out there, it's going to be very difficult for somebody to spot you. Even if you start putting the most random videos on social media, you never know who's going to see you. Everything's connected. I might put a video up of me fooling around and doing something in my room or even in my garden, and then somebody sees it in the US or Australia, whoever, and who knows what can happen. So it's also
Yeah.
that persistence to putting yourself out there, which I think is really important. And even like for us agents, just looking at what their patterns are outside of the spotlight. Are they working behind the scenes to put themselves in front of other situations, which basically makes our life easier as well, because then we have more leverage when we want to put them forward for certain jobs and engagements.
Maybe you have a list, but I would imagine it's kind of hard to have a list. But is there like a list of like personal characteristics that like stand out for like, okay, this is talent. You know what I mean? Like this is someone that I can represent and can get a lot of gigs and have a lot of
Yeah,
movement.
I think, and this might sound a bit, not even superficial, but a bit like fourth dimension kind of thing. But one thing that I actually do feel is that when I'm in the room with them, when we invite them for a meeting, it's literally sometimes aura. You can tell when somebody walks in the room and
Yeah.
has some sort of energy about them. There's something in the air that shifts, and it can be for the positive or it can be for the negative as well. But when it's for the positive, it's like, oh, damn, okay, like this is actually an individual that I think that there's something interesting about them. I want to learn more. I want to know more about them. What do you do? Why do you do it? Where do you like to do it? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? All of these kind of questions that you ask yourself. And that you obviously want to ask them as well. So I think the aura and the energy that somebody brings in the room is super important. I love a good backstory. I love to know where somebody's from, especially when they're from nothing and they build up this brand of themselves that is just becomes this fascinating thing that you want to be close to. I love learning about that. And then obviously the why, like why whoever's doing something that is impactful, and that's always really good. And that's the fascinating thing about my position is that because I specialize in public speaking, I get a lot of people that do a lot of different things, not just in music, but in news, in foreign affairs. Wonderful man called John Simpson, and he's been reporting on the front line for the last 50 years for the BBC and all around the world, from Iraq to Afghanistan to Ireland in the 70s, everywhere. And the story that he has, the factors that go into like a talent and what makes them exciting is the energy, the backstory, what they do and why they do it. And also, I mean, I'd like this to be more universal, but if they're genuinely a nice individual to talk to, if they're just nice when they're open to talking with other people as well, when you get people that they might be the most talented individual in the world, but they're super closed off and they don't want to talk to you, then obviously you can't really build a relationship with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you find that a lot of those characteristics carried over from like the music kind of background of warmer people when you're like looking for talent there versus public speaking, which is like in my mind two completely separate avenues, right? But
Yeah.
like
hmm
I guess talent is talent probably at the end of the day, right?
Talent is talent, but not all talent is the same human, if that makes sense. Like
What do you mean
there
by
can be
that?
various kinds of humans that all fall under the umbrella of being a talent. But not all of those humans are necessarily on the same level when it comes to social relations and personal opinions and the way they live their life. To each their own, to a certain extent. But when it comes to the, let's say, cross contamination between the public speaking sector and the DJing and the underground, I think, yeah, there are common things that I look at. Again, background is another thing that I look at, that, you can be in public speaking or you can be in music. And if you have a fascinating story behind you, obviously you're going to have something interesting about you. Or at the same time, you can be the most talented speaker and then you can be the most talented DJ or musical, selector, and you can have both the same kind of impact when you're there and witnessing whatever they're doing.
I want to like zoom out a little bit now and just kind of talk about you and like your day to day, because I think a lot of people, they see talent managers, they see them on like
Mhm.
reality TV and everything, right? So they have this very like they have this
I think
skewed
that's
perception
a
maybe.
very Americanized way of seeing an agent.
So I think
Yeah,
like a lot
like
of
when you
people,
see
they
this,
have
oh,
like
let me
that
just call my
glamorous.
agent.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So like
yeah.
what is it actually like day to day? Like are you taking calls from your talent all day and you're like yelling at people on the phone?
Nah, I'm not a yeller, thank God. I don't really yell. If I have any frustration, it's very internal and and zen, like I get myself in a zen state. Or I just go to the gym. That helps. No, day to day wise, I mean, life in London in general is quite. It gets hectic. It's a massive city. It has around between 8 and 9 million people, but at the same time it can also get a bit lonely when you don't have a good system of support around you, because everybody, like, yes, it's the rat race. Everybody's on one. Everybody's going to A to B. Like, we have something called, I don't know if you're familiar, but the London Walk. People that walk in London just walk super fast, and then when you keep that level of momentum in another place, it's like, wait, why am I walking so fast? Because it's literally everybody. It needs to be from A to B in the most efficient manner possible. So it can get hectic, but I think within that hecticness, the relationship that you have with the job and then with yourself is really important to find that balance. And then that automatically feeds into your ability of doing a good job. So day to day wise, go to work, go to the office. I go to the office 4 times a week. Also because it's really good to have that interaction with your colleagues. And sometimes when it comes to, if we're in a busy time, obviously we can communicate by phone, by email, but if I'm in the same room with somebody, like, communication is going to be 10 times more efficient. Also, we're human, like, we rely a lot of like how we say things, not necessarily what we say. The thing about this job, we do have our hours, but you're always kind of available throughout the day. Sometimes if there's like a big event, obviously we're working during the weekend. It's something that you do because you like doing. You gotta like the job, because it can get a bit, stressful sometimes, because the working behind the scenes for a big event, you need to make sure that your talent gets to a venue and performs in front of 10,000 people, and it's in another country, and you're communicating with the local team over there, and you also like dealing with communication with countries that are not necessarily Western. Everybody has their own culture, everybody has their own way of communicating, so it's also very interesting to learn how to adapt and communicate with people from different parts of the world. And when it
Yeah.
comes to the actual like agent lifestyle, I mean, again, we're not all the same. Some are much more hands-on, sporadic, get that done, that, blah, blah, cool, this, cool, and the other people are just more, like, chill, work on things in advance, make sure you're there in case you need it. Yeah, there's various approaches, but I think when the heat is on and there's big things going on, obviously, like, mentally, you're never really fully switched off. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like there's the shouting and the all of this going on in the background. I think if you see it on clips or on TV, it's because they want to make it a bit more dramatic. But I can only think of one time I had to raise my voice once, and that was because you know there was an important piece of equipment that went missing, and I had to make sure that it was found.
Yeah, I think it's a valid reason. I think that
So
makes
that was
sense.
that was the only thing. Like, I got a bit heated up once, but everything got solved, obviously. Yeah, but that's the thing. You always have to kind of keep in mind that you are dealing with humans, and human. As I know people say, "Oh, you shouldn't take things personally. It's just business." But at the same time, you are dealing with people. You know, when you gotta kind of like understand that these people sometimes, and me included, people make mistakes, and you never know what's happened that day to a certain individual, and so it's good to always maintain, I think, a very honest and clean, but also considerate tone when communicating to people. Doesn't matter who they are.
I think those are good words to live by, regardless if you're a
Yeah,
talent agent or just a
very,
human.
very, very peace and love.
Yeah. I I guess like kind of the next question I have for you is like obviously like you even said yourself like the talent portfolio under your agency is like very diverse, right? There is basically everything under the sun. You guys have been doing it for over 2 decades. What does it look like operationally inside of the agency?
Yeah,
Like, is it teams or like how does that work?
yeah. There's various teams. Usually we have somebody at reception, obviously, that kind of helps with the scheduling and of the day to day, what's happening, people coming in the office or not, picking up the phone, potential new inquiries and whatnot. And then we have a communications department, which basically specializes in also a bit of the brand of the company, everything to do with the website. If you go on the website, the talent pages, the information that you have available. If you write to us for initial inquiry, that team also like distributes the various workload depending who the client is interested in terms of talent. They also work really hard in doing really beautifully done brochures that underline everything about a specific talent, the marketing aspect, or everything to do with communication. So that's a very important pillar of the company. And then we have some agents, and we're literally there working on the jobs. We are the mediums basically between the talent and the clients or the promoter. So we need to be very efficient when it comes to communication. We can't really sit on things. We need to be very proactive. And we also work closely with some specific talent that each agent works closely with. And it's also our responsibility to work to find them new opportunities. And also when they pass us the opportunities, we pick them up, we do the negotiations, we do the contracts, we do the logistics, we travel with them. Then we have a finance department, and then we have the managing directors as well, top of the ladder.
Like you touched on like kind of, opportunities coming up for this talent, either you're finding or they're passing along to you. How do you actually
Yeah.
evaluate like this is a good opportunity for my talent or this is maybe not something you want to engage in?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of research involved, due diligence. We look at who writes to us or who we want to write to. We look at what they've worked on the past. If it's an event or a conference, for example, we look at past guests. We work on the basis that we want to provide, financially viable jobs for our talent. We're looking for opportunities that have, a certain allocated budget for their guests and speakers or performers and whatnot. So it's also a matter to understand and see what sort of an organization we're dealing with, what are their expectations in terms of what sort of talent they want, because obviously there's layers to it, and what's the fee bracket. Speaker fees can vary quite quite massively depending on the scale of the event. So it's about that first contact and just understanding a little bit more the organization that you're dealing with if you haven't heard of them before. And again, we usually either pick up the phone, schedule a Zoom call, have a chat, understand each other, understand what they're looking for, and then the responsibilities of the agent. But this is also something that we do in a group quite often. We have a conversation and we see what sort of talent maybe we can put forward for this organization. How would they benefit from a certain individual, and how the talent would benefit from the organization as well. And then we think of who can we put forward for this.
Fascinating. It's a lot of like 360-degree thinking that I don't think I necessarily would have thought of if
Mm,
I wasn't in that industry. You know what I mean? And like actively living it. I guess like connecting it now to something you've actually done. You mentioned the NDTV World Summit that you did in October.
yeah.
What was that experience like? I can't even imagine the complexity of like international everything.
Yeah, so to for the people that might be tuning in later on and don't know what NTTV is, NTTV is the largest broadcasting news channel in India. If I'm not mistaken, they also have various TV channels as well. So each year they put on this event that they broadcast on the official NTTV channel, and they have various interesting individuals on stage to either, there's also political figures, entrepreneurs, futurists, artists, architects, and they just talk about their speciality. There was, when I was there in October, one of the guests was Rishi Sunak, ex-Prime Minister of the UK, or also the ex-Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. President Modi made an appearance and he gave a speech. And I think it's just being in the room with individuals that have had or have a certain impact of the world, the behind the scenes, and just absorbing that experience was something very different and very unique that I had the chance to, take part in. Yeah, various people. There was also the head of Rolling Stone India there, which was also a fascinating character. Yeah, some fantastic people, really. From a professional standpoint, it's just like those are the kind of events that we just love working on, big organizations, great production, great teams working behind the scenes, and then being able to travel there with somebody that you work closely with and help them make sure they deliver the best possible performance on national television. It's great to do something like that, to work on something like that, just to be part of that sort of events and experience is the kind of thing that makes me think, okay, now that's why I do it. That's why I enjoy this job. It's getting there. It's meeting the people that work there, meeting people that also have traveled there. Again, I always kind of, in a way, come back to the human experience of it. The fact that, for somebody like me that came from a small town in Italy, Ferrara, known for their great pasta, being able to then go to this beautiful event in Delhi in India and just be in the same room as some phenomenal individuals and learn from them and hear them speak. Yeah, priceless.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess like kind of just to wrap up here, and I think the point that you just left on right there is like, you came from small town, you're now doing this in Delhi, India, right? What excites you most about where your career is going?
I think, oh, good question. I should have expected that. I think just the increased network that I'm making, the increase of individuals that I get to meet on a day-to-day, monthly basis, the fact that you never know where you could potentially end up for a job. And also I love the fact that it's very correlated between everything that I do outside of the office as well. So all of my events, the musical based events that I do in more of like an underground scene, it's just, again, like you see individuals that live a certain life on top of the top, and then you get down with the gritty, with the underground, where people, certain areas of town where people wouldn't normally go to, and you're there right on in the middle of it. There's a massive spectrum, and I think that's one of the things that I look forward to, is like exploring more of the spectrum. The far left, the far right, the right in the middle, the up, the down, everything. Just being in the middle in an environment where people from all around the world, and that, I have to say, is a beautiful thing about London. It is an insanely beautifully complex melting pot that I think, and I've been lucky enough to travel a bit around the world, I think that the kind of melting pot that London has is really hard to beat.
That's amazing. I've only been once, and now you're making me want to go again and check it out
Yeah?
and stay a
Where do you
little bit
go?
longer. London, like I went, I wouldn't be able to tell you where specifically, central London, I don't know, but I had a great time. But it was like for 3 days. Like I feel like I didn't really experience that whole side of the culture. But
Yeah, that's the thing. The beautiful thing about London is that you can go from east to west to north to south to central, and it's almost like being in a different city. It's so varied in terms of subcultures and, communities. Yeah, it's fascinating. You go to like Soho, and then you go to Shoreditch, Brixton, completely different from one thing or another. It's
You're pitching
beautiful.
it well. You're
Yeah,
pitching
and
it
plus
really
the
well.
pubs. If you needed another incentive, there's a great selection of craft ales on tap. Fish and chips. I don't know. People say that English food ain't the best, and as an Italian, I agree, it's not the best. But first of all, when you get some good ingredients, it's banging. And then the beautiful thing about London is that there's so much choice in terms of foods, and when you know where to look, it's actually really good quality.
Yeah, that's one thing. Like Toronto also, I can't compare it to London, I don't know, but Toronto also fantastic food. Lots of selection.
Hmm.
You can get good quality food. But recently I moved to San Francisco and honestly it's lacking here. Like it doesn't have
Really?
that same, oh yeah,
You
yeah.
would expect in California that they have some nice, fresh ingredients and stuff, no?
Yeah, like what you get is good. Like if you go for Mexican food, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Or Venezuelan in San Francisco is really big too. But in terms of like diversity of food, like Toronto is so diverse. You could literally get anything
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah. So I feel
Hmm.
like it's similar to what kind of what you're describing in London.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've been to Toronto once. It was nice. I went to a lovely oyster bar.
Giacomo, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. It
Thank you
was
for having me.
amazing speaking to you.
Same, right back at you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what you guys get up to in the future.
If you love conversations like this, you should definitely stay connected with us. Subscribe, leave a comment down below. We'll get back to you. We're going to be doing a lot more of these conversations. There's a lot of interesting people out there in the industry. There's a lot of stuff that we can learn from and share with you. So you should definitely subscribe and stay tuned for more.